Over the first few episodes, we've explored Toronto from the inside out. We started in the downtown core and waterfront, moved through the city's intellectual and creative districts, and then explored the neighborhoods that give Toronto so much of its character. But Toronto is so much bigger than downtown. Today's episode is about the places that many visitors never venture to. These weren't originally Toronto neighborhoods at all. They were separate municipalities with their own downtowns, industries, and identities before being amalgamated into the city of Toronto in 1998. For the non-Canadians, Toronto is actually made up of 6 separate municipalities that were amalgamated in 1998. Old Toronto, Etobicoke, North York, York, East York, and Scarborough. Parts 2, 3, and 4 already covered Old Toronto and East York. So in this video, we'll explore North York, York, Etobicoke, and Scarborough, including the best place to apparently get engaged in Toronto. Keep watching. The former city of North York was Toronto's most ambitious suburban experiment. Planned as a counterpart to the downtown core, it was built around the Yonge Street corridor with its own city hall, civic institutions, and the ambition of becoming a second downtown for a growing metropolitan region. For a time, that vision developed largely on its own terms, until the subway arrived and everything changed. Today, North York Centre is one of the most intensively developed residential and commercial districts in Canada. If you're new to Canada, someone could convince you that this is Toronto's downtown, and you wouldn't doubt it. IRS condominium and office towers line Yonge Street, transforming what was once a suburban road into an urban skyline that increasingly resembles downtown Toronto. At the center of this transformation sits Mel Lastman Square and the former North York City Hall. Built as a civic art of an independent municipality, they now serve as public gathering spaces for a city government that no longer exists. The institutions still remain, but their role has evolved alongside the surrounding neighborhood. North York's identity has also changed in many ways its original planners could not have anticipated. Restaurants, retail businesses, and cultural institutions established by Korean and other East Asian communities have given Yonge Street corridor a distinct character. Immediately to the north, Willowdale represents the quieter residential expression of the same story. What began as a low-density suburb has gradually evolved into an established urban neighborhood. The story of North York demonstrates what happens with the arrival of major transit investment. The subway came and encouraged private development, increased residential density, and helped transform an ambitious suburban municipality into one of Toronto's most important urban centers. Among the former municipalities, North York is perhaps the clearest example of infrastructure achieving the outcome its planners hoped for. It may not look exactly as they imagined, but I'd say it has become the second downtown they set out to build. York occupies a narrow band of the city between Old Toronto and North York, stretching roughly along the Weston Road and Eglinton corridors. Despite decades of development pressure around it, York has retained its working class and immigrant character without attracting the same level of investment or attention as its neighborhoods closer to downtown. The commercial strip along Weston Road is the economic heart of the area. Caribbean, South Asian, and West African communities have built their own businesses, cultural institutions, and neighborhood economy here, creating a commercial ecosystem that functions largely on its own terms. The story of York is ultimately one about infrastructure and who it serves. Running directly through Weston are the Up Express and the Kitchener Gold Line, providing fast connections to Union Station and Toronto Pearson Airport. Yet, for years, the Union Pearson Express fare was priced for airport travelers, making it prohibitively expensive for many residents. The train passed through the community without truly serving it, highlighting the gap between existing infrastructure and infrastructure that functions as a community asset. That same theme continues in Mount Denny, where the policy story becomes visible. The city designated both Weston and Mount Denny as investment neighborhoods. That's a term used for communities receiving targeted infrastructure and social investment. The designation itself tells a larger story, implying that these neighborhoods have spent decades receiving less investment than other parts of Toronto. The arrival of the Eglinton Crosstown LRT at Mount Denny is the most significant transit investment York has seen in generations. Promising better connections and renewed economic activity, it also arrived decades after comparable investment reached other parts of the city. Here in York, the transit projects, the neighborhood designations, and renewed policy attention are beginning to arrive, but they're coming only decades after waiting. By the way, if you're not yet subscribed, please do. Etobicoke is a very different story. Unlike York or Scarborough, which we would get to later, its defining characteristics is not delayed investment, but more of contrast. Within a single former municipality are some of Toronto's wealthiest neighborhoods, some of its most economically marginalized communities, rapidly developing waterfront districts, and long-established village main streets. The contrast begins with Umber Valley Village. Set along the Umber River Valley, the neighborhood is defined by large lots, mature tree canopy, and quiet residential streets that have remained remarkably unchanged despite decades of growth elsewhere in Toronto. Like Forest Hill, wealth here is expressed through stability. The neighborhood's low-density character has been intentionally preserved through deliberate planning decisions that have resisted significant redevelopment. Which is completely a different story just a few kilometers to the north in Rexdale, where you'll find one of Toronto's most economically challenged communities, with higher unemployment, lower household incomes, and more limited transit access than many other parts of the city. Between the two extremes of Umber Valley Village and Rexdale is Bloor West Village. Its walkable commercial streets, independent businesses, and long-standing Ukrainian cultural presence have given the neighborhood a distinct identity that has remained even as demographics have evolved. Like Ronces and Greektown, the community's heritage has become part of its commercial identity, demonstrating how a neighborhood character can survive long after the original immigrant population disperses. Up next, the journey reaches Long Branch. This neighborhood was once an independent lakeside village before becoming part of Etobicoke and later Turner. And it has still managed to retain its own identity despite multiple layers of amalgamation. The Long Branch Loop at the western end of the streetcar network marks not only the end of the line but also the western edge of Toronto itself. Next is the waterfront. Mimico and Umber Bay shores represent one of the most significant waves of waterfront redevelopment in Toronto. High-rise condominiums now line Lakeshore Boulevard, creating a skyline that stands in sharp contrast to the older residential streets immediately behind them. This waterfront also provides an interesting counterpart to the Toronto Island. Where the islands remain protected as public parkland, Umber Bay Shores became a major residential development corridor. At the mouth of Umber River, Umber Bay Park offers one of the finest panoramic views of Toronto skyline. Looking east across Lake Ontario, the financial district rises behind the harbourfront and the islands. This was also the perfect location for an engagement proposal. Listen, all of us random strangers were also invested in this proposal. At this point, I think we all need to be invited to the wedding.
And we don't fight the Tuesday.
Huge congratulations to the couple and wishing them lots and lots of love. Etobicoke's story is one of contrast of the wealth and hardship, established neighborhoods and new development, protected green space, and intensive waterfront construction, all existing within the same former municipality. Scarborough is the largest of Toronto's former municipalities by area and home to some of the most diverse communities in the country. Occupying the entire eastern and northeastern portion of the city, its story is shaped by two realities that exist side by side: extraordinary cultural diversity and decades of deferred infrastructure investment. This is a municipality whose communities build thriving local economies and strong cultural identities while waiting decades for infrastructure that much of the city had already taken for granted. Scarborough is a multi-layered side of Toronto that I feel deserves its own separate video. The commercial corridors around Kennedy Road and Shepherd Avenue in Agincourt, the ethnic diversity in Malvern, Scarborough Town Centre and the Scarborough Civic Centre, Gid Park, Scarborough Bluffs, and maybe a little insight into the Scarborough subway station. If you're interested in a video on Scarborough, let me know in the comments below. Modern Toronto post-amalgamation may share a single government, but it's still very much a city of very different places. If you're new to this series, I recommend starting with the earlier episodes. In part 1, explore the Toronto Island. It's part history, part economics, and explains why this incredible piece of waterfront looks the way it does today. Part 2 focuses on the downtown core and the waterfront, exploring the city's financial center, Harbourfront, Old Town, and Yorkville. Part 3 was about the University of Toronto and the annex to Kensington Market, Chinatown, Queen Street West, and up to Midtown. Part 4 was for the East End, Part 5 was for the West End. These two places are where many Torontonians actually live, and most of the neighborhoods here still try to maintain their original character. All the videos are linked in the description box. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.